The coffee shop smelled like fresh pastries and expensive perfume. It was one of those fancy places where a simple latte costs more than most people spend on lunch. The kind of place where everyone seems to be working on something important on their laptops, wearing designer clothes and checking expensive watches. Rebecca stood in line, feeling a bit out of place in her plain scrubs. Her feet ached from standing for the past 6 hours straight at the hospital. She had exactly 30 minutes for lunch, and she'd already wasted 10 of them stuck in traffic. All she wanted was a quick coffee and maybe a sandwich before heading back for another exhausting shift. The line moved slowly. Rebecca checked her phone, reading a text from her babysitter about her son's afternoon snack. 5 years old and already so picky about food. She smiled despite her tiredness. Being a single mom wasn't easy, but moments like these reminded her why she pushed through every difficult day. That's when she heard it. A baby crying, not the usual fussy whimper that babies make when they're a bit cranky. This was different. This was the kind of desperate, distressed crying that made every parent in the room turn their heads, the kind that set off alarm bells in anyone who'd ever cared for a child. Rebecca looked around, trying to find the source. Near the window, she spotted a man holding a tiny infant. The baby couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 months old, wrapped in what looked like a very expensive blanket. The man was well-dressed, probably in his mid-30s, wearing a suit that Rebecca guessed cost more than her monthly rent. His hair was perfectly styled, his watch gleamed in the sunlight, and everything about him screamed wealth and success, except for his face. His face told a completely different story. He looked absolutely terrified. His hands shook as he tried to rock the baby. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the air conditioning. He fumbled with a bottle, trying to get the baby to drink, but the infant turned away, crying even harder. A designer diaper bag lay open on the table, its contents spilling out in chaos, revealing his desperate attempts to find something, anything, that would help. Rebecca watched as other customers glanced at the scene, then quickly looked away. Some frowned in annoyance at the noise. Others whispered to their companions, probably complaining about how the crying was disrupting their peaceful afternoon. One woman even asked the barista if something could be done about the disturbance. The man seemed to shrink with each passing moment. He whispered something to the baby, his voice cracking with emotion. Rebecca could see his eyes getting red, like he was fighting back tears himself. He looked around the cafe, seemingly hoping someone would help, but everyone avoided his gaze. Something in Rebecca's chest tightened. She knew that look. That desperate, overwhelmed, I don't know what to do look. She'd worn it herself plenty of times during those first months with her own son, when every cry felt like a code she couldn't crack. Her coffee order was called. Rebecca grabbed it along with the sandwich she'd ordered. She should head back to the hospital. Her break was almost over. She had patients waiting, paperwork piling up, and a supervisor who didn't appreciate tardiness. But she couldn't move. The baby's cries seemed to cut through everything else in the room. And that man looked like he was about to fall apart completely. Rebecca took a deep breath and walked toward the table. As she got closer, she could see the baby's face was red and scrunched up. The infant's little fists waved in the air, and even from a few feet away, Rebecca could tell something was wrong. This wasn't just hunger or a dirty diaper. This was genuine distress. "Excuse me," Rebecca said softly, stopping a respectful distance from the table. The man looked up, startled. His eyes were indeed wet with unshed tears. Up close, he looked even more exhausted than Rebecca felt. Dark circles under his eyes, a slight stubble on his jaw that suggested he'd forgotten to shave. A coffee stain on his expensive shirt collar. "I'm sorry," he said quickly, his voice hoarse. "I'm trying to calm her down. I know she's bothering everyone. I just don't know what's wrong." "You're not bothering me," Rebecca said gently. She set her coffee down on a nearby empty chair. "I'm a nurse. Would you mind if I took a quick look at your baby, just to make sure everything's okay?" The man's expression shifted from embarrassment to hope in an instant. "Really, yes, please. I don't know what to do. She's been crying for over an hour now, and nothing I try helps." Rebecca moved closer, and the man instinctively held the baby out toward her. Rebecca didn't take the infant right away. Instead, she leaned in to observe. Years of nursing experience had taught her to assess situations carefully. The baby's cry was different now that she was closer. Weaker almost, and the infant's face wasn't just red from crying. It was flushed in a way that made Rebecca's professional instincts kick into high gear. May I touch her forehead? Rebecca asked. The man nodded frantically. Yes, anything, please. Rebecca gently placed her hand on the baby's forehead. Heat radiated against her palm. The baby's skin was hot, too hot. Rebecca's expression grew serious. She carefully touched the baby's neck, checking for swelling, then looked at the infant's eyes, slightly sunken. The soft spot on the baby's head looked a bit depressed, too. How long has she had this fever? Rebecca asked, her voice calm but firm. Fever? The man's face went pale. I thought she was just warm from crying. Maybe a few hours. I'm not sure. She felt warm this morning, but I thought it was just because I had the heat too high in the apartment. Rebecca's mind raced through possibilities. High fever, signs of dehydration, lethargic movements between the crying fits. This baby needed medical attention, and soon. What about wet diapers? Has she had one recently? Rebecca asked. The man thought for a moment, then shook his head slowly. Not since early this morning. I thought maybe she just didn't need to go yet. Rebecca's concern deepened. She looked at the man, seeing the fear growing in his eyes as he began to realize this might be serious. I don't want to scare you, Rebecca said, keeping her voice steady and professional. But your daughter needs to see a doctor right away. She has a high fever and she's showing signs of dehydration. This isn't something we can fix with a bottle or a diaper change. The man's hands started shaking harder. A doctor? But I thought maybe she was just teething or had a cold. Are you sure? I'm sure, Rebecca said firmly. Babies this young with fevers this high need immediate medical care. Do you have a pediatrician you can call? The man fumbled for his phone, nearly dropping it. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold it. I have a number somewhere. My wife, she used to handle all of this. She had everything organized. But she's not here anymore and I can't find anything and I don't know what I'm doing. His voice broke on the last words. Rebecca could see he was on the verge of completely breaking down. Around them, a few customers had started paying attention again, but still, no one else offered to help. Rebecca made a decision. She looked at her watch. Her break was definitely over now. She should be back at the hospital. But sometimes being a nurse meant more than just following schedules. Listen to me, she said, her voice kind but authoritative. We're going to get your daughter help right now. I'm going to come with you to the emergency room. I'll help you through this, but we need to go immediately.
Can you do that?
The man looked at her like she'd just offered him a lifeline in a stormy sea. You'd do that? But you don't even know us, and you're clearly busy. I can't ask you to. You didn't ask, Rebecca interrupted gently. I'm offering. Now let's get your daughter the help she needs. We can talk more on the way. The man stood up quickly, gathering the scattered items from the diaper bag with trembling hands. Rebecca helped him, moving efficiently, her nurse training taking over. Within moments, they were heading toward the door. The baby's cries now weak whimpers that worried Rebecca even more than the earlier screaming. As they left the coffee shop, Rebecca caught the surprised looks from other customers. She didn't care. Her sandwich and coffee sat forgotten on the chair. Her supervisor would definitely have questions about why she was late. Her own problems and exhaustion would still be waiting for her later. But right now, a baby needed help, and sometimes that's all that mattered. The taxi ride felt like it took forever, even though the hospital was only 10 minutes away. Rebecca sat in the back seat next to the man, keeping a close eye on the baby. The infant had stopped crying so forcefully, which somehow felt worse. Now she just whimpered softly, her little body limp against her father's chest. Keep talking to her, Rebecca instructed gently. Let her hear your voice. It's comforting for babies even when they're sick. The man nodded, his voice shaky as he spoke to his daughter. It's okay, sweetheart. We're getting help. Daddy's here. Everything's going to be fine. He didn't sound convinced of his own words. Rebecca pulled out her phone and quickly texted her supervisor at the hospital. Family emergency, she typed. We'll explain later. She hated lying, but technically this was an emergency. Even if it wasn't her family, she'd deal with the consequences later. The taxi driver kept glancing in the rearview mirror, clearly nervous about having a sick baby in his car. He drove faster than usual, sensing the urgency without being asked. Can I ask you something? The man said suddenly, his voice barely above a whisper. How bad is this? Really? Rebecca considered her words carefully. She didn't want to panic him more than he already was, but she also needed him to understand the seriousness. Babies can go downhill fast when they're dehydrated and have high fevers. But we're doing the right thing by getting her to the hospital now. They'll take good care of her. I should have noticed sooner, he said, his voice breaking. What kind of father doesn't notice his own child is sick? The kind who's doing his best, Rebecca said firmly. Trust me, even experienced parents miss things sometimes. Babies can't tell us what's wrong. We just have to figure it out. The man looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. You said you're a nurse. Do you have kids? A son? He's 5, Rebecca answered, watching the baby's breathing. And let me tell you, I've had my share of panic moments. Like the time he had croup and I thought he was choking. Or when he got his first real fever and I called the pediatrician at 2 a.m, convinced he was dying. He had a cold. A small, sad smile crossed the man's face. Really? Really, Rebecca confirmed. Being a parent is mostly just controlled panic and guessing. Some days you guess right, some days you don't. The taxi pulled up to the emergency room entrance. Rebecca was already moving before the car fully stopped. Stay here for a second, she told the man. Let me grab a wheelchair or get someone to help us. She rushed through the automatic doors into the familiar chaos of the ER. A nurse she knew from working the occasional extra shifts looked up from the desk. Rebecca, I thought you were upstairs in pediatrics today? Long story, Rebecca said quickly. I need help. 6-month-old baby, high fever, dehydrated, father's in the taxi outside. Can we get a bed ready? The nurse's professional demeanor kicked in immediately. Bay 3 just opened up. Bring them through. Rebecca ran back outside where the man was already climbing out of the taxi with the baby, struggling to pay the driver with one hand while holding his daughter with the other. Rebecca took over, paying the fare from her own wallet without thinking about it. Come on, she said, guiding him inside. They're ready for us. The next hour passed in a blur of activity. Doctors and nurses swarmed around the baby, asking the father questions he struggled to answer. What time did the fever start? Had she been eating normally? Any recent illnesses? Any changes in behavior? He fumbled through his answers, constantly looking to Rebecca for help. She stayed close, translating medical jargon when needed, explaining procedures before they happened and keeping the father calm when he looked like he might fall apart. They started an IV on the baby, which required several attempts because her tiny veins were collapsed from dehydration. Each time the baby cried out, the father flinched like he'd been physically hurt. Rebecca placed a steady hand on his shoulder. They're helping her, she reminded him softly. I know it's hard to watch, but they're helping. Finally, after what felt like forever, a doctor pulled them aside. The baby was sleeping now. Fluids running through her IV, her color already looking better under the hospital lights. She has a severe bacterial infection, the doctor explained. We're running more tests to determine exactly what kind, but we've started her on broad-spectrum antibiotics. You got her here just in time. Another few hours and this could have been much more serious. The man's knees seemed to buckle. He grabbed onto the wall for support. An infection? How did she get an infection? Babies get them, the doctor said matter-of-factly. Their immune systems are still developing. It happens. The good news is we caught it, and she's responding well to treatment. We'll keep her overnight for observation, but I expect she'll make a full recovery. After the doctor left, the man turned to Rebecca. His eyes were red, tears streaming down his face now without any attempt to hide them. You saved her life. If you hadn't been there, if you hadn't insisted we come here, I would have just kept trying to calm her down at home. I might have waited until bedtime, thought she'd sleep it off. I could have lost her. But you didn't, Rebecca said gently. She's going to be fine. I don't even know your name, he said suddenly, laughing a little through his tears at the absurdity of it all. Rebecca, she said, offering her hand. He shook it, his grip firm despite the trembling. David, and that's my daughter, Lily. Thank you doesn't seem like enough for what you did. They moved to chairs near Lily's bed. The baby slept peacefully now, monitors beeping steadily. David couldn't take his eyes off her. Can I ask you something personal? Rebecca said after a while. You mentioned your wife used to handle things. Is she away? Working? David was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was hollow. She died 8 months ago. Complications during childbirth. Lily survived, but my wife didn't. Rebecca's hand went to her mouth. I'm so sorry. Everyone told me to hire help, David continued, staring at his sleeping daughter. A nanny, a nurse, someone who knew what they were doing. I have the money for it. I own a tech company. Made more money than I know what to do with. But I was stubborn. I thought I could do it all myself. Thought it would somehow honor her memory if I could be both parents, handle everything alone. He laughed bitterly. My nanny quit this morning. She'd been telling me for weeks that Lily wasn't acting right, that I should take her to the doctor for a checkup, but I kept saying I had it under control, that she was overreacting, that I knew my own daughter. This morning she finally had enough of my pride and walked out. And then Lily got worse, Rebecca filled in. And then she got worse, David confirmed. I didn't know what to do. I panicked. I thought maybe getting out of the apartment would help, that the fresh air might calm her down. So I ended up at that cafe, completely falling apart, with everyone staring at me like I was failing, which I was. You weren't failing, Rebecca said firmly. You were overwhelmed and grieving and trying your best. That's not failing. That's being human. David looked at her properly then, really saw her for the first time. The tired eyes, the worn scrubs, the phone she kept checking for messages from her babysitter. You left work to help us, he said slowly. A complete stranger. And you're checking your phone because you have your own kid to worry about? Rebecca shrugged. My son's fine. He's with the babysitter, and work will understand eventually. Will they? David asked. Because from what I hear, hospitals aren't exactly forgiving about missed shifts. Probably not, Rebecca admitted with a small smile. But I couldn't just walk away. I'm a nurse, and more than that, I'm a mom. I know what it's like to feel like you're drowning and nobody's throwing you a lifeline. Is it always this hard? David asked quietly. Being a parent? Rebecca thought about her answer carefully. Yes and no. The physical exhaustion gets easier as they get older. But then you worry about different things. School friends, whether you're doing anything right. My son's father left when he was 2. Said he wasn't ready for the responsibility. So I get the single parent thing. I get feeling like you're failing even when you're trying your hardest. How do you do it? David asked. How do you keep going when everything feels impossible? You just do, Rebecca said simply. Because they need you. And some days that's enough reason. Some days it has to be. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Lily sleep. A nurse came by to check vitals and adjust the IV drip. Everything looked good. The infection was responding to the antibiotics. I need to change everything, David said suddenly. I need to stop being so proud. Stop thinking I have to do everything alone to prove something. Hire proper help. Actually listen when people who know better than me give advice. That sounds like a good plan, Rebecca agreed. And I need to thank you properly, David continued, not just with words. Let me pay you something or make a donation to your hospital or... Rebecca held up her hand, stopping him. I don't want your money, David, but you left work for this. You'll probably get in trouble. Let me at least cover your lost wages or... No, Rebecca said firmly but kindly. I didn't do this for money. I did it because it was the right thing to do. Because if I was in your position, scared and alone with my sick child, I'd hope someone would help me too. David looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Rebecca's expression stopped him. The world doesn't always have to be about money, Rebecca said softly. Sometimes it's just about people helping people. That's enough. Before David could respond, Rebecca's phone buzzed. A text from her supervisor. We need to talk. Tomorrow morning. 9 a.m., Rebecca sighed. Here came the consequences. Trouble? David asked, noticing her expression. Probably, Rebecca admitted. But that's tomorrow's problem. Tonight your daughter is safe. That's what matters. As the evening wore on and Lily continued to improve, Rebecca finally prepared to leave. She wrote her phone number on a piece of paper and handed it to David. If you need advice or just someone to talk to who understands, call me, she said. Parenting is hard enough without trying to do it completely alone. David took the paper like it was something precious. I will, and Rebecca, thank you for everything, for seeing us when everyone else looked away. Rebecca smiled tiredly. Get some rest. Both of you, you've had a rough day. As she walked out of the hospital into the cool evening air, Rebecca felt the exhaustion of the day finally catch up with her. Her feet ached, her back hurt, and she still had to pick up her son from the babysitter and figure out what to make for dinner. But somehow, despite everything, she felt good. Sometimes helping someone else was the best medicine for your own tired soul. 2 weeks passed like a blur. Rebecca tried to forget about the meeting with her supervisor, but it had gone exactly as badly as she'd expected. Written warning for leaving her shift without proper authorization. A note in her file. A stern lecture about hospital policy and professional responsibility. She'd taken it all without defending herself. What could she say? That she'd abandoned her post to help a stranger? That sometimes being a nurse meant more than following rules? Her supervisor wouldn't understand. The hospital ran on policies and procedures, not feelings and instincts. The worst part wasn't the warning. It was the whispers from other staff. Some thought she'd done something noble. Others thought she was reckless and unprofessional. Rebecca tried to ignore both sides and just focus on her work. Life went on. Bills still needed paying. Her son still needed breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The rent was due in 3 days, and Rebecca was short by almost $200. She'd picked up an extra shift this weekend, which meant less time with her son, but that was just how things went sometimes. She was walking home from the grocery store, carrying 2 heavy bags and mentally calculating whether she could skip buying new shoes for herself this month, when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, thinking it was probably a spam call, but something made her swipe to accept. Hello? Rebecca? It's David from the hospital. With Lily? Rebecca stopped walking, surprised. She'd honestly thought he wouldn't call. Rich people usually didn't stay in touch with the people who helped them. They said thank you, meant it in the moment, and then returned to their separate worlds. David. Hi. How's Lily doing? She's perfect, David said, and Rebecca could hear the smile in his voice. Completely recovered, acting like nothing happened. The doctor said she's thriving. That's wonderful, Rebecca said genuinely. I'm so glad to hear it. Listen, David continued. I know this might seem strange, but I'm actually outside your apartment building right now. Well, I think it's yours. The address from the hospital intake forms. Is this creepy? This feels creepy. I'm sorry, I should have called first before just showing up. Rebecca looked down the street, and sure enough, there was an expensive black car parked in front of her building. Very out of place in this neighborhood. You're here right now? With Lily, David confirmed. I wanted to thank you properly, and I have something I want to talk to you about. Would you have a few minutes? Rebecca thought about her messy apartment, the dishes in the sink, the laundry she hadn't folded yet. Then she thought about turning away someone who'd driven all this way. Sure. Give me 5 minutes to get upstairs and make the place presentable. You don't have to do that, David said quickly. Trust me, I do, Rebecca laughed. 5 minutes. She practically ran up the 3 flights of stairs to her apartment, grocery bags banging against her legs. She burst through the door, startling her son, who was watching cartoons on the couch. Mommy's home, he announced happily. Hey, baby, she said, kissing his head quickly. We're going to have visitors in a minute, okay? Can you pick up your toys real quick? Her son, bless him, started gathering his action figures without complaint. Rebecca threw dirty dishes into the sink, tossed the pile of unfolded laundry into her bedroom, and did a quick sweep of anything obviously messy. It wasn't perfect, but it would have to do. The knock came exactly 5 minutes later. Rebecca opened the door to find David standing there in casual clothes, holding Lily in his arms. The baby looked completely different from 2 weeks ago. Bright-eyed, smiling, grabbing at her father's collar with chubby fingers. Come in, Rebecca said, stepping aside. Sorry about the mess. I wasn't expecting company. It's not messy, David said, though Rebecca knew he was being polite. His apartment probably looked like something from a magazine. Thank you for seeing us. Lily made a happy gurgling sound when she saw Rebecca, which made Rebecca's heart melt a little. Look at you, she cooed. You look so much better, sweetheart. Her son appeared from behind the couch, curious about the visitors. Mommy, who's that? This is my friend David and his daughter Lily, Rebecca explained. David, this is my son, Tyler. Cool, Tyler said, already losing interest and returning to his cartoons. They sat down, David looking slightly uncomfortable on Rebecca's worn couch. Lily immediately started trying to grab everything within reach. David expertly redirected her attention to a toy he'd brought. You're getting better at that, Rebecca observed with a smile. I hired help, David admitted. A professional nanny. 2, actually. 1 for days, 1 for nights. And I actually listen to them now, which is revolutionary for me, apparently. That's good, Rebecca said. There's no shame in asking for help. That's actually part of why I'm here, David said. He shifted Lily to his other knee, clearly nervous about something. These past 2 weeks I've been thinking a lot. About what you said at the hospital. About how the world doesn't always have to be about money, About people helping people. Rebecca nodded, not sure where this was going. My company, David continued, we develop software and apps. Mostly business stuff, pretty boring, honestly. But we've been working on this new project for about a year now, a healthcare accessibility program. The idea is to help people navigate the medical system, find affordable care, connect with resources. That sounds amazing, Rebecca said. It's been a disaster, David admitted bluntly. We've spent millions on development, hired the best designers and programmers, built this beautiful platform. But it doesn't work. I mean, technically it works fine, but when we tested it with actual users, people hated it. They said it was confusing, impersonal, and didn't address their real problems. He paused, adjusting Lily, who was trying to eat his watch. Then I met you, and I realized what was missing. We built the whole thing from our perspective. Rich tech guys who've never had to worry about medical bills or figuring out which hospital accepts their insurance or choosing between buying medicine and buying groceries. Rebecca felt slightly uncomfortable. David, I appreciate you thinking of me, but I'm not a tech person. I barely understand my own phone half the time. That's exactly why I need you, David said eagerly, leaning forward. I don't need another programmer. I need someone who lives the reality we're trying to help with. Someone who understands what it's actually like to navigate the healthcare system without unlimited resources. I don't understand what you're asking, Rebecca said honestly. David took a deep breath. I want to hire you as a consultant. You'd come to our office maybe twice a week, meet with the development team, review what we're building, tell us what works and what doesn't from a real person's perspective. Share your experiences, your frustrations, what would actually be helpful. Rebecca stared at him. You want to pay me to complain about healthcare? David laughed. Basically, yes. But more than that. I want your insight, your expertise, not as a tech person, but as someone who knows what we're trying to solve better than anyone in my company. I already have a job, Rebecca pointed out. A full-time job, with a schedule that's already maxing me out. The consulting work would be flexible, David said quickly. You'd set your own hours around your nursing schedule. And the pay would be competitive. Very competitive. He pulled out his phone and showed her a number. Rebecca's eyes went wide. That's per month? Per consultation session, David corrected. We'd probably need you twice a week at minimum. More if you're available. Rebecca did the math in her head. That was more than she made in a month at the hospital. For a few hours of talking about her experiences, it seemed impossible. Too good to be true, why? She asked suspiciously. This seems like a lot of money for just talking. Because good information is valuable, David said simply. We've already wasted millions building something nobody wants. Your perspective could save us from wasting millions more. And beyond that, you'd be helping us build something that might actually help people. People like you, Rebecca wanted to say yes. God, she wanted to say yes so badly. She could pay off her credit cards, buy Tyler new shoes without guilt, maybe even save some money for the first time in years. But something held her back. I feel like I'd be taking advantage, she said quietly. You want to thank me for helping Lily. This feels like charity dressed up as a job. David's expression grew serious. Rebecca, I'm a businessman. A pretty good one, actually. I don't give away money out of charity, especially not in my company. If I didn't think you'd bring genuine value, I wouldn't offer this. Yes, I'm grateful for what you did, but this isn't about repaying a debt. It's about recognizing that you have knowledge and experience my company desperately needs. Lily chose that moment to reach for Rebecca, making little grabbing motions with her hands. Rebecca took her automatically, settling the baby on her lap. Lily immediately grabbed Rebecca's necklace, a cheap thing Tyler had picked out for her last birthday. She remembers you, David said softly. Babies don't usually remember people they've only met once, but she knows you kept her safe. Rebecca looked down at Lily's happy face, then over at Tyler watching cartoons, then at David's earnest expression. She thought about the bills on her kitchen counter, the warning in her file at work, the constant stress of never having quite enough. Can I think about it? She asked. This is a lot to process. Of course, David said. Take all the time you need. But Rebecca? I meant what I said. This isn't charity. Your life experience, your perspective, your understanding of what people actually need, that's valuable. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, not even yourself. After David and Lily left, Rebecca sat on her couch for a long time, staring at the business card he'd given her. Tyler came and snuggled against her side. "Mommy, are you sad?" he asked. "No, baby," she said, wrapping her arm around him. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About how sometimes life surprises you," she said. "About how helping someone can come back around in unexpected ways." Tyler seemed satisfied with that answer and returned to his cartoons. Rebecca looked at the business card again. She thought about David's words, about value and perspective and not selling herself short. She thought about Lily's face when the little girl had reached for her, about how a simple act of kindness 2 weeks ago had somehow led to this moment. Maybe, just maybe, saying yes wasn't taking advantage. Maybe it was recognizing her own worth for once. She picked up her phone and sent a text to the number on the card. "Okay, let's talk details. When do you want me to start?" The reply came almost immediately. "How about Monday? We'll make it work around your schedule. Thank you, Rebecca. You have no idea how much this means." Rebecca smiled, feeling something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope. Real, solid hope for a better future. Not handed to her as charity, but earned through her own knowledge and experience. Sometimes the best things in life came from the simplest acts of human kindness. And sometimes, just sometimes, the universe found a way to give back. Rebecca stood outside the glass tower downtown, feeling completely out of place. The building stretched up into the sky, all modern architecture and reflective windows. People in expensive suits rushed past her, talking on phones, carrying leather briefcases and coffee cups from places that probably charged $10 for a latte. She looked down at her own outfit. Her nicest pants, the ones she saved for parent-teacher conferences. A simple blouse she'd ironed 3 times that morning to get rid of every wrinkle. Comfortable shoes because she'd learned years ago that life was too short for uncomfortable footwear. Nothing she wore looked remotely like it belonged in this building. Her phone buzzed. A text from David. "Security is expecting you. Just give them your name at the front desk. I'll meet you in the lobby." Rebecca took a deep breath and pushed through the revolving door. The lobby was even more intimidating than the outside. Marble floors, modern art on the walls that probably cost more than her car, and a massive reception desk where 3 impeccably dressed people sat looking official. She walked up, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. "Hi, I'm Rebecca Martinez. I'm here to see David Chen." The receptionist smiled warmly, which helped calm Rebecca's nerves a little. "Of course, Ms. Martinez. Mr. Chen mentioned you'd be coming. He'll be right down. You can wait in the sitting area over there." Rebecca had barely sat down when she saw David step out of the elevator. He was in business casual clothes, holding Lily in one arm and a tablet in the other. Somehow he managed to look completely comfortable juggling both. "Rebecca," he said, his face breaking into a genuine smile. "You made it. Thank you for coming." "Thanks for inviting me," Rebecca said, standing up. "Though I have to admit I'm pretty nervous. I've never done anything like this before." "Neither have most consultants on their first day," David assured her. "Come on, let me show you around." They took the elevator to the 15th floor. David chatted easily about the company, how they had about 200 employees, how the healthcare project was their biggest initiative this year. Lily kept trying to press all the elevator buttons, and David kept gently redirecting her hands, which made Rebecca smile. He really had gotten better at the whole parenting thing. The office was open and modern, with glass walls and collaborative spaces. People worked at standing desks, held meetings in colorful lounges, and gathered around coffee stations. Everyone seemed young, energetic, and very tech-savvy. David led her to a conference room where 5 people were already waiting. They looked up as she entered, and Rebecca felt that familiar wave of inadequacy. These people probably all had fancy degrees and years of experience in their fields. "Everyone, this is Rebecca Martinez," David announced. "Rebecca, this is the core team working on the Health Connect project. That's Jennifer, our lead designer. Mike and Rachel, our senior developers. Tom handles user experience, and Christine is our project manager." They all smiled and said hello. Rebecca noticed they were trying not to stare at Lily, who was currently attempting to eat David's collar. "Sorry," David said, noticing their looks. "Nanny called in sick today. Backup nanny has the flu. This is parenthood, apparently." "I can hold her if you want," Rebecca offered without thinking, "so you can focus on the meeting." David looked relieved. "Would you mind? She's been pretty good today, but she does get fussy." Rebecca took Lily, who settled immediately into her arms. The baby grabbed Rebecca's finger and started babbling contentedly. Several people in the room looked surprised at how easily the baby calmed down. "Okay," David said, pulling up a presentation on the big screen. "Rebecca, we wanted to show you what we've built so far and get your honest feedback. And I mean honest. Don't worry about hurting anyone's feelings. We need to know what's wrong so we can fix it." For the next 30 minutes, they walked Rebecca through the app they'd developed. It was beautiful, she had to admit. Sleek design, smooth animations, lots of features. It could search for doctors, compare insurance plans, estimate costs, and even book appointments. But as they demonstrated each feature, Rebecca found herself getting more and more frustrated. Not at the people, but at how disconnected the app was from reality. "Can I ask some questions?" Rebecca said finally. "Please," David encouraged. "That's why you're here." Rebecca shifted Lily to her other arm. "This cost estimator feature. It shows the average cost of procedures at different hospitals, right?" "Exactly," Mike the developer said proudly. "We pull data from dozens of sources to give users accurate pricing information. But it doesn't show what I'd actually pay," Rebecca said. "It shows the sticker price. What about insurance? Deductibles? Copays? The difference between in-network and out-of-network? Because I can't afford to go to the hospital with the average cost if they don't take my insurance." Mike's smile faltered. "We have a section where you can input your insurance information." "Show me," Rebecca said. He clicked through several screens, finally pulling up an insurance form. It had fields for insurance provider, policy number, group number, and about 20 other pieces of information. "Okay, so 2 problems," Rebecca said gently. "First, I have no idea what half of these fields mean or where to find that information. And second, even if I did, I'm not going to take the time to fill out this entire form when I'm trying to find a doctor because my kid is sick. I need fast answers, not homework." The room went quiet. Jennifer, the designer, was furiously taking notes. "What else?" David prompted. Rebecca bounced Lily gently as she continued. "The appointment booking feature. It's set up to let me book 30 days in advance. But when my son gets an ear infection, I need to see someone today. Not next week, not in 3 days, today. Where's the urgent care option? Where's the I need help now button? We have a search filter for urgent care," Tom from User Experience said, demonstrating. "Right, but I have to know to use that filter," Rebecca pointed out. "What if I'm panicked because my kid is sick and I'm not thinking clearly? The app should probably ask me right at the start whether this is urgent or not." More note-taking. Rebecca was starting to warm up now, seeing that they genuinely wanted her input. "And this whole section about medical history," she continued. "It wants me to upload records, list every medication, document every previous condition. That's great for someone who has time and organization, but I've got folders of papers at home that I barely understand. Doctor's notes with handwriting I can't read. Test results from 3 years ago that might be important, but I'm not sure. Asking me to organize and digitize all that before I can use the app? I'll give up before I start." Rachel, the developer, raised her hand like she was in school. "What if we had a simplified option? Just the basics?" "That would help," Rebecca agreed. "Or better yet, what if the app could help me organize that information over time? Start simple, add more details as I go. Make it actually useful from day one instead of requiring a huge time investment up front." They spent the next 2 hours going through every feature of the app. Rebecca pointed out things that seemed obvious to her but had never occurred to the team. Like how the medication reminder feature didn't account for medications you could only afford to take every other day, instead of daily. Or how the doctor rating system didn't include whether the office staff was kind and patient, which mattered more to Rebecca than fancy credentials. She talked about showing up to appointments and being told her insurance wasn't actually accepted, even though the website said it was. About emergency rooms that looked affordable until surprise bills showed up months later. About how sometimes you picked a doctor not because they were the best, but because their office was on a bus line you could actually take. Lily fell asleep in Rebecca's arms halfway through, which didn't slow her down at all. She just kept talking, kept sharing, kept explaining the reality that these smart, well-meaning people had never experienced. When they finally took a break, Christine, the project manager, looked slightly shell-shocked. "We basically have to rebuild this from scratch, don't we?" "Not from scratch," Rebecca said quickly, worried she'd been too harsh. "The foundation is good. The technology works. You just need to rethink who you're building it for. That's exactly what we needed to hear, David said. He'd been quiet for most of the meeting, just listening and watching. This is exactly the perspective we were missing. Jennifer looked at Rebecca thoughtfully. Can I ask you something? How did you learn to navigate all of this? The insurance, the costs, the system. It's so complicated. Rebecca laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. I learned because I had to. When you're choosing between your kid's medicine and your rent, you figure out real fast how to find the cheapest pharmacy. When you're sitting in a billing office trying to negotiate a payment plan, you learn what questions to ask. Nobody teaches you this stuff. You just survive it enough times that eventually you know the tricks. That's what we need to capture, David said. Those survival tricks. That real-world knowledge. They ordered lunch. Fancy sandwiches from a place Rebecca had walked past 100 times but never entered because of the prices. As they ate, the conversation shifted. The team started asking Rebecca about her life, her experiences, and genuinely listening to her answers. She told them about the time Tyler had broken his arm, and she'd called 5 different urgent cares before finding one that was open late and took her insurance. About the pharmacy that let her pay for prescriptions in installments when she was short on cash. About the clinic nurse who'd shown her how to apply for reduced fee programs she'd never known existed. By the end of the day, Rebecca's head was spinning with ideas and information. The team had filled 2 whiteboards with notes and sketches for improvements. They'd scheduled 3 more meetings with her over the next 2 weeks. As Rebecca prepared to leave, Jennifer pulled her aside. Thank you, she said quietly. I've been working on this project for 8 months, and this is the first time I feel like we might actually build something that matters. Walking out of that glass tower into the evening air, Rebecca felt different than when she'd entered. Not smaller or intimidated, but valuable. Important, like maybe her experiences. The hard parts of her life she usually tried to hide were actually worth something. Her phone buzzed. David, you were amazing today. The team is already implementing changes based on your feedback. Thank you for being so honest. Rebecca smiled as she headed toward the bus stop. Maybe this was really going to work. Maybe, just maybe, something good really could come from that day in the coffee shop when she decided to help a stranger. And maybe her struggles, all those hard years of barely getting by, could actually help other people avoid the same pain. That felt like purpose. That felt like hope. 6 months later, Rebecca sat in her new apartment, watching the sunset through windows that actually had decent curtains. It wasn't a fancy place by any means, but it was in a better neighborhood. Tyler had his own room now instead of sleeping on the couch. The refrigerator was full. The bills were paid on time with money left over. The consulting work had changed everything. Not overnight, but gradually, like watching a flower bloom. She'd kept her nursing job, but reduced her hours to part-time. The combination of both incomes meant she finally had breathing room. Room to think about things beyond just survival. Her phone buzzed with a reminder. Tyler's soccer practice ended in 20 minutes. She grabbed her keys, smiling at the fact that she could actually make it to his practices now instead of always working. These little moments, the ordinary parts of parenting she'd missed for so long, felt like gifts. At the soccer field, she joined the other parents on the sidelines. Tyler waved when he saw her, his face lighting up. He'd grown more confident these past months too, happier. Kids noticed when their parents were stressed all the time, even when you tried to hide it. After practice, they stopped for ice cream. A small thing, but it used to be a luxury they couldn't afford. Now it was just a Tuesday treat. Mom, can Lily come over this weekend? Tyler asked, chocolate ice cream smeared on his chin. Rebecca smiled. Over the past months, their families had gotten surprisingly close. David brought Lily over regularly, and the kids had become genuine friends despite the age gap. Tyler loved playing Big Brother, showing Lily his toys and making her laugh. I'll check with her dad, Rebecca said. But probably yes, her phone rang. Speaking of David, she answered. Hey, I was just telling Tyler that Lily can probably come over Saturday. Perfect, David said, but his voice had a strange quality to it. Nervous. Actually, that's kind of why I'm calling. Can you come by the office tomorrow? There's something I need to show you. Is everything okay? Rebecca asked, concerned. More than okay, David said. Just trust me. Can you make it around 11? Sure, Rebecca agreed, curious now. I'll be there. The next morning, Rebecca arrived at the familiar glass tower. The security guard knew her by name now, waving her through with a smile. Upstairs, she found David waiting outside the conference room, practically bouncing with energy. Lily was there too in her stroller chewing on a toy. "You seem excited," Rebecca observed. "I am," David admitted. "Come on, everyone's waiting." Inside the conference room, the entire Health Connect team was gathered, plus several people Rebecca didn't recognize. They all looked expectant, excited. "Okay, what's going on?" Rebecca asked. David pulled up the presentation screen. "Remember 6 months ago when you tore apart our app and told us everything that was wrong with it?" "I didn't tear it apart," Rebecca protested. "I just gave feedback." "You absolutely tore it apart," Jennifer laughed. "And we're so glad you did." David clicked to the next slide. "We rebuilt it. From the ground up. Using your insights, your experiences, your understanding of what people actually need. And yesterday, we launched the beta version to 10,000 users. The screen showed the new app. It looked completely different from the original. Simpler, cleaner, more focused. A big button right at the top asked, "How urgent is your need?" Another section said, "Start simple, add details later." The insurance section had been completely redesigned. "The feedback has been incredible," Christine said, pulling up review scores. 92% positive ratings. People are calling it the first healthcare app that actually makes sense. Rebecca stared at the screen, not quite believing what she was hearing. "Really?" "Really," David confirmed. "And it's because of you. Your voice, your perspective, your refusal to let us build something useless. You helped us create something that's actually helping people." Mike, the developer, stood up. "There's more. Show her the testimonials." David clicked through several user reviews. Rebecca read them, her throat getting tight with emotion. "Finally, an app that understands I can't afford to see just any doctor. This helped me find care I could actually pay for. The urgent care finder saved me hours of calling around when my daughter was sick. Thank you for making something that works for real people. I've been avoiding the doctor for months because navigating insurance is so confusing. This app walked me through it in 5 minutes." "This is amazing," Rebecca said quietly. "I can't believe I helped with this." "You didn't just help," David said firmly. "You made it possible. Which brings me to the next thing." He pulled up another slide. It showed a news headline. "Local tech company's healthcare app goes viral, praised for accessibility." "We're getting national attention," David continued. "Health insurance companies want to partner with us. Hospitals want to integrate our system. We're about to scale this up way bigger than we originally planned." "That's incredible," Rebecca said, genuinely thrilled for them. "And we want you to be part of it," David said. "Not just as a consultant, as a full member of the team, Director of User Experience and Community Outreach. You'd be helping us expand the app, but also training other people with similar backgrounds to yours to join the team. Building a whole department of real-world voices." Rebecca sat down, overwhelmed. "David, I'm not qualified for that." "I don't have the right degree or experience or—" "You have exactly the experience we need," Jennifer interrupted. "Your experience living the reality our users face. That's more valuable than any degree." Rachel nodded. "We've learned more from you in 6 months than we learned in years of traditional research. You translate real life into solutions. That's a skill you can't learn in school." David pulled up one more slide. It showed a salary number that made Rebecca's eyes go wide. "This would be full-time. Benefits, health insurance, retirement plan, the works, and enough flexibility that you can still be there for Tyler when he needs you." Rebecca looked around the room at all the faces watching her hopefully. She thought about how far she'd come in 6 months. From standing in that coffee shop exhausted and overworked, to sitting in this room being offered a career she'd never imagined possible. "Can I ask something?" she said finally. "Why me, really? There must be other people with similar experiences who have more professional qualifications." David sat down across from her, Lily reaching for him from the stroller. He picked up his daughter before answering. "When I met you in that cafe, I was drowning," he said quietly. "I had all the money in the world, all the resources, all the advantages. But I was failing as a father because I was too proud to accept help, too convinced I had all the answers because I'd been successful in business." He looked at Lily, who was playing with his tie. "You taught me that wisdom isn't about how much money you have or how many degrees you've earned. It's about understanding life, understanding struggle, understanding what really matters. You saved my daughter's life because you paid attention when everyone else looked away. And you helped save this project because you told us truths we needed to hear. You see things we don't see," Christine added. "You understand people we're trying to help in a way we never could. That's not something you learn. That's something you live. Rebecca felt tears building in her eyes. She'd spent so many years feeling like her struggles were something to hide, something to be ashamed of. Like being poor meant she was somehow worth less than other people. But here were these successful, educated people telling her that her experiences had value, real important value. I don't know what to say, she admitted. Say yes, David encouraged gently. Help us build something that matters. Help us make healthcare accessible for people like you used to be, like millions of people still are. Rebecca thought about all those nights she'd stayed awake worrying about bills, all the times she'd chosen between her needs and Tyler's, all the moments she'd felt invisible, like nobody saw her struggling or cared. Yes, she said. I'll do it. The room erupted in applause. Jennifer came around the table to hug her. Others congratulated her, shaking her hand, welcoming her officially to the team. Later, after the celebration died down and most people had returned to work, Rebecca and David stood by the window looking out over the city. Lily dozed in her stroller, peaceful and healthy. Thank you, Rebecca said, for seeing me that day, for taking me seriously, for this opportunity. Thank you, David replied, for seeing me, for helping when you had every reason to walk away, for being honest even when it wasn't easy. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. You know what's funny? Rebecca said. 6 months ago, I thought that day in the coffee shop was just a random moment. A brief interaction with a stranger that wouldn't matter in the long run. And now? David asked. Now I realize there's no such thing as moments that don't matter, Rebecca said. Every kindness we show, every time we choose to help instead of looking away, every time we see someone's humanity instead of just their circumstances, it all ripples out. Changes things in ways we can't predict, David nodded. I've learned that too. One act of compassion changed my entire life, changed Lily's future, and now it's helping thousands of other people through this app. Rebecca smiled. Not bad for a 30-minute coffee break. They both laughed. Lily stirred in her sleep, making a small sound. She's getting big, Rebecca observed. She is, David agreed, and healthy. All because you paid attention in a coffee shop 6 months ago. That weekend, as promised, David brought Lily over. Rebecca watched as Tyler carefully showed the toddler his toy cars, patient and gentle. David helped her make lunch, both of them comfortable in her small kitchen. They weren't just success stories anymore. They were friends, family almost, two people from completely different worlds who'd found connection through unexpected circumstances. As they sat on the floor playing with the kids, Rebecca thought about how far she'd come. Not just financially, though, that was wonderful, but emotionally, she'd learned that asking for help wasn't weakness, that accepting opportunities wasn't charity when you'd earned them through your own worth and knowledge. She'd learned that kindness wasn't just about the immediate moment. It was about creating ripples that spread further than you could see. And most importantly, she'd learned that every person has value, rich or poor, educated or not. Everyone has something important to offer the world. Sometimes it just takes someone else seeing that value first before you can see it in yourself. Tyler laughed as Lily knocked over his carefully built block tower. David and Rebecca exchanged smiles. You know, David said, I don't think I ever properly thanked you for that day. You've thanked me plenty, Rebecca said. With opportunities, with friendship, with everything. No, David said. I mean for the most important thing. You saw a crying baby and a desperate father, and instead of judging or ignoring, you just helped. No expectations, no conditions, just human kindness. That's rare, Rebecca shrugged. It's not that rare. It's just that people forget sometimes. Forget to look at each other. Forget that we're all just trying our best. Forget that sometimes all it takes is one person caring enough to stop and help. Well, David said, I'm glad you remembered. As the afternoon sun streamed through her windows, Rebecca realized something profound. That day in the coffee shop, she hadn't just helped David and Lily. She'd helped herself too. She'd reminded herself that being kind, being helpful, being human, those things mattered more than money or status or any of the things she'd worried about for so long. And in the end, that simple act of kindness had given her back something she'd lost in all those years of struggling. Hope. Real, solid, tangible hope for a better future. Sometimes all it takes is one moment, one choice to help instead of walking away, one decision to see someone's humanity instead of their circumstances, one act of kindness that changes everything.